the fellow travelers, Mark here with Wolters World, and today we're here in New York City, and today we're going to talk about our ways that you will probably annoy the locals here in New York City. Because one thing you have to realize is though New York has this reputation for being gruff and mean and oh, they're already mad at us anyway because we're tourists and we're in their city, that's not the thing. The people here are actually fantastic. New Yorkers can help you have the greatest time possible, but that's if you don't annoy them while you are here, okay? So I want to give you some of the common things tourists do that upset the locals so you don't do them. And I want to start on the subway because honestly, we actually have a whole video on the don'ts of the subway, but I want to give you some of the things that you do on the subway that will annoy the locals. It really starts when you try to get into the subway system. Look, if you don't have your Metro card ready or your phone out to like tap and go through the turnstile to get into the Metro, get out of the way. Because people are going, and if you stop like, oh, let me get my card out. Where is it? Oh, is this it? Oh, what is the Metro card? The locals aren't going to like that, okay? So just have your like Google Wallet ready and you just beep yourself in or go get your Metro ticket, have that so you're ready to go. Because that's one thing you'll see locals be like, oh, come on. And when you get through the turnstile, another thing that irks them is you stop right on the other side of the turnstile to figure out which train do I need to take. Again, step to the side, let the others go by, and then figure things out on the side as opposed to the middle, holding everyone up. And another thing that's going to upset people, I'm just going to say this, manspreading on the subway. Look, your legs don't need to be out this wide. Bring them together, all right? Because that's kind of a rude thing, and that's one of those things, just not a cool thing out there, all right? So if we go above ground to where another place where tourists tend to annoy the locals is if anytime you're on the sidewalk, you kind of get in their way. And the thing is, there's different ways you might get in their way, and it doesn't mean to be somebody trying to do this. Me, you see, oh, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, the Lady Liberty, she's right over there, and you want to take a picture of her. You want to get that picture, and you stop in the middle of the sidewalk. Look, anywhere in the world when you stop in the middle, it's like the airport, people that stop in the middle, you're going to get run over. And the locals, that just annoys them. So if you want to take a picture of something, instead of having 1,000 people going by and elbowing you and saying something, step to the side. Step aside, get your picture, get your video, and then get back and keep walking on the sidewalk. So it's not a problem. But that stopping in the middle is really troublesome for the locals. Also, if you've got a group of people and you're like, oh, we have our family of 5 or 6, we're going to hold hands and walk down the sidewalk here in, on 8th Avenue or 5th Avenue. No, you're holding people up. That's the thing. Don't slow them down, because what'll happen, whether it's on the escalators going down to the subway or going places, you have to realize this. New Yorker, they're in a hurry to get someplace. And if they miss a train, for example, that could be a 45-minute difference from getting home right now or waiting 45 minutes to get home. I mean, it's kind of a big difference for them. So that's why it's good just not to slow them down, not to block them. Just want to let you know that one. And the thing is I've seen tourists get upset with the locals here in New York because they were upset with the tourists. And that's another thing. Don't get upset with the locals if they tell you, hey, get out of the way, hey, hurry. Or they're not saying sorry or holding the door for you. This is a big city. It's a constant go. And it's not that they're rude or mean. It's just that this is not something they're really considering. So don't get upset with it and then point it out. Well, the New Yorkers never said, how do you do when I was trying to talk to them on the subway. Yeah, you don't talk to people on the subway. You don't even make eye contact on the subway, okay? Because that's not like an annoying thing. That's a who's the weirdo staring in my eyes on the subway kind of thing. You don't do that. Now, another thing that might irk the locals in a way that I kind of chuckle about it, because I actually saw this today at a bagel shop, is if you go to kind of a famous restaurant or a famous, like, I wouldn't say restaurant, like a stand-up place where you're getting like a bagels or pizza or a dog or something like you have people here already know what they want, like a deli, right? And they have all the stuff on the boards. You're trying to figure out what to order, and you don't know what you want to order when you get to the front of the line. Or you wait to decide what you want till you get to the front of the line. No. You need to decide before you even get in the line. Because if you're sitting there going, I don't know, and the whole other line, the next 10 people already have their order ready and like the perfect exact change ready to go to, that's going to annoy them, okay? It's kind of like if you're back home, anywhere in the world, right? And you go to McDonald's, you know what's on the McDonald's menu. You know what you're going to order. So the person in front of you is like, I don't know what to get at McDonald's. You like want to rip your hair out. She's like, dude, you should already know this. That's one of those things here that really irks the locals. Now, another more serious thing I want to talk about is if people are disrespectful at the 9/11 memorial here. If your One World Trade Center is, well, you can't see it through the clouds. It's back over there. There's a 9/11 memorial, and I've seen this before. And this is something that irks not just the locals here, but other tourists when you're there. If people don't take it seriously, like if you're trying to do a TikTok dance by the memorial or get your duck face picture with the memorial, it's inappropriate, okay? That's something that will really irk the locals and irk the other tourists, and you better believe someone is going to call you out for it when you're here Now, going back to our blocking the locals kind of annoyances, another thing I would say is if you don't cross the street whenever you can. Now, what I mean by that is, like a good person, you're like, oh, I will wait till it says walk, or I'll wait till the green man is there, so it tells me that I can cross the street. I'll wait right here, even though there's no traffic. Dude, they don't like that here. They're like, look, there's no cars coming, let's go. And you'll see the New Yorkers just cross the street anytime they can, anywhere they can, because, hey, there's no cars, we're fine, let's do it. The thing is, tourists don't always do that. When you got a big group of tourists, like, at the corner, and the locals, like, stuck behind them going, guys, I gotta get up. What are you doing? There's no cars coming. What the heck? Look, if it's okay to go, okay? Like, don't break the rules. We do not advocate you breaking the law and jaywalking. But the locals might prefer, if you jaywalk with them, to get to the other side because there's no cars coming. Now, another thing that's definitely going to irk the locals, because there's a lot of people who work in the service industry here, is if you don't tip. Look, New York, when you're here, you will hear people from all over the world, but not every single country in the world tips, okay? But here in New York City, you do tip, and that is your servers, your waitresses, your bartenders, your guides, the concierge, bellhop, the people that clean your hotel room. You're tipping them, okay? And if you may come from a country that tipping is the thing, you're like, I don't believe in tipping, it's wrong, they should pay the people more. Yeah, they probably should pay the people more, but they don't. So those people that are helping make your visit to New York better, don't forget to tip them. And a 20% tip is kind of like a normal thing here, whether it's a guide or a restaurant or whatever, all right? So just be aware of that, because that is one of those things that if you're going back to a restaurant and you didn't tip before, don't expect to get very good service at all the next time you're there. Now, another thing that I think my local friends would really want me to tell you that irks them, but they don't want to tell you that because you're your friend, is if you ask your local friends that live here in New York City to go sightseeing with you. Look, they've already been. They've had other people come here 10,000 times and make them do the same sightseeing tours before. They don't want to go. They want to save their money for other things. If you want to be a good friend, you tell them, hey, where can we meet for drinks later? Where can we meet for dinner later? They'll be happy to go to a happy hour with you, go eat with you, all kinds of stuff. But please, for the love of God, don't ask your local friends to go to Times Square with you or go to the museums with you or go do stuff that may have done a lot of times. I mean, you can ask, but I'm just letting you know, wanting them to be your tour guide while you're here is not a thing. You can hire a real tour guide when you're here. Don't use your friends. Let them have their lives, okay? And just go and eat and drink with them. Now, another jerk move that tourists sometimes make when they're here in New York is they steal someone's cab. Now, what you have to realize, when you want to get a cab here in New York, you go to the intersection, and on the direction the cabs are coming from, you put your hand out to call a cab. And so it's almost kind of like a lineup, like the next person's there. And so if somebody's put your hand up and you step in front of them to make yourself the first person trying to get a cab, dude, stealing somebody's cab isn't cool. You will get someone saying something to you. That's why in the movies, when you see people steal a cab in New York, it doesn't matter if it's a grandma or a kid, they yell at the person that stole the cab, all right? So don't do that. Now, another little thing you might not want to mention to your New York friends is the smell, or I should say the smells, because you will get some random smells during your time here in New York City. And yes, sometimes it does smell like old wet dog rolled around in poo or something like that, or old wet garbage. It does happen. It's a city. That's the way it is. The locals know it too. You don't have to point it out to them because they already know. So just be, kind of cool about it. Be like, oh, that's gross, but I'm not going to say anything because they already know. Now, another thing I think is important for you to realize is you can actually rent bikes and ride around the city pretty easily here. There's bike paths all over the place. But one thing you might upset the locals with if you're riding those bikes around town is if you ride the wrong direction of the street, because those one-way streets, it's also one way for the bikes as well. So if you're coming from the other way, one, it's dangerous, but two, the locals are like, dude, you almost hit me when I'm trying to cross the street here. What's going on? So be safe when you're riding those bikes. Another thing I think is important not to do is diss the boroughs. I mean, New York City isn't just Manhattan and Midtown. There's so much more. Whether you're going out to Brooklyn, you're going to the Bronx, Queens, there's so many places to go and see and enjoy around the entire city that if you're sitting here saying bad things about other parts of the city, even if people live here in Manhattan, they're not going to like that you're dissing Brooklyn. All right, so just be aware of that, because it's kind of a fun thing to do for tourists, but you don't realize it's insulting for the locals. Now, another thing that irks the locals has to do with certain tourists that are here, but they're more like not tourists like you and me. They're kind of like political tourists that are here. And those are the entourages of all the cars, the ambassadors that go through with the sirens blaring and blocking the roads. And you're like, oh, I needed to get this light. Now I got to sit here because some ambassador's going through the United Nations. And that's one of those things that it's not you and me that's upsetting them. It's other tourists that are here that kind of get them. And there's another thing that locals get upset about, not because the tourists did it, but because what the tourists have brought, and that's the really loud pedicab music. Yes, it's going to upset you, but also upsets the locals, and that's since they're trying to get the tourists to come and take the pedicabs with them, we get the blame for it, so there you go. Now, another thing I think is very important that will upset the locals is if somebody says they're from New York City, but they're not actually from New York City. You know, if you're from New York City, you know, you're from the boroughs, you're from Manhattan, you're from Brooklyn, you're from the Bronx, you're from Queens, and that's a New Yorker, like a New York City person. Not the people that are from New Jersey or Connecticut or Westchester, wherever. Those kind of people, you see, I'm saying this, and all these people are going crazy over there saying, they're not really New Yorkers, right? And so that's why, just like anybody, if you're from the actual city, you're from the actual city. From outside, they don't really consider that a real New Yorker, and that might, you know, irk one of the real New Yorkers a little bit. And now, the one thing that will probably upset your New York friends the most, upset the locals the most when you come here, is if you don't accept the fact that New York City is the greatest city in the world. From the culture, the museums, the restaurants, the people, the fun, everything about it, this city is wonderful. So I hope you're here to enjoy it. Whether you're crazy kids are coming here, or you're adults, or you're a family, or you're old or young, there's so much for you to enjoy. So don't upset the locals, because the New Yorkers, they're pretty awesome. Bye from here in New York.